Speaking of reflecting, it's catch-up time. We're finally catching up with Benita Okojie, an award-winning gospel artist, someone who released her first album at the age of 10.
Of course, she's had songs like Osemudiame.
Yes, so.
and Child of God, which both became international successes. She's the youngest artist ever to perform at the opening and closing ceremonies of FIFA Nigerian 99 championships and has managed to keep her career flourishing over the years. You are welcome.
Thank you.
You need to bring out the confetti because you don't say for this game. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I can still remember my parents always, anytime you came up on screen, they would call me and say, come on, watch her, come on, watch her, come on, watch her.
Your model.
Your mate.
Yeah.
She your mate, see what she's doing. And, you know, it put, everybody was just agog with the presence you had on screen, on stage. And you still have that presence now from the video we just saw just now.
Wow, thank God for that. I think it's amazing when people say things like that. I was very shy as a child, and so if you saw me doing all of those things, then it must have been one, the grace of God, two, Bella just like giving me all the ginger that I needed, and then my parents like, you know, on the other side telling me, yeah, dance this way, do this thing this way, because I was really shy as a child. So it was just amazing. I had a really huge support from my family. Like the whole family supported me throughout, you know, when I was younger. And yeah, I still enjoy that support even now.
So there was a time you were away from the scene completely for a really long time. Was that a result of some sort of pressure that you went through as a child? Do you want to tell us, take us to that experience?
It wasn't pressure, actually. If there's anything my parents, God really helped my parents to do, was that they made me live a pretty normal life, even though I was kind of popular. And I always say that I didn't think
popular. You were popular.
Well, okay, yes. But like, I didn't even know I was that popular until I grew older, because even though we saw people shouting, oh, Benita, Benita, I was doing chores at home. I was doing everything I was supposed to do.
Like a normal kid.
Like a normal kid. I was playing with sand like every other child was doing. So it wasn't like they took away all of that childhood, you know, from memories from me, so that because I was popular. So I didn't really understand how popular I was until I actually grew older. But like, I took a break when I started, I went to university, because I knew that it was affecting a lot of things. Sometimes I would leave school for programs. In a day, I would have 3 programs, and then I would leave school, and then I would come back. And then sometimes catching up was really hard, to catch up on notes and then even classes. So it was beginning to affect things. And my mom and my dad were very intentional about me finishing school. They didn't want me to drop out halfway just because of my career and all of that. So they just said to me, well, we're going to take some time. You need to focus on your school and all of that. And so I did that. And then after that, I think when I was done, my dad passed. And that was also another experience that I was, at some point, I was like, I don't even think I want to sing again because it was just really hard. And my dad was really instrumental to my being really, you know, successful in music. So I just felt like, I don't think anyone will quite understand it anymore. But thankfully, God sent me an amazing man who's my husband, who always gives me the push that I need. So I'm now like really like settled in music.
You know, I'm curious, sorry Titi, I'm curious how, you know, the moment your dad passed, how that would have affected your spirituality. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, it was hard. It was hard, especially because it's not like he, you know, took ill one week and then he was gone. He was like ill for years, for like 5 years. And then we prayed, we fasted, we took him to, you know, the hospital. We did everything that we could. And yeah, as a child of God, you don't, if you love God, you don't question him because you know that his plans are always good. But there's that place where you're like, is there anything I could have done better? Is there any prayer points I could have prayed more? Or
you have continued singing?
Well, you know, there were questions in my mind, but I think that as I've grown older, God has helped me to see the answers. First, he sent me an amazing husband who helped me through that process. Secondly, he sent my son while we were still in the middle of, you know, mourning. My son, I took him for my son. And I remember my husband coming one day to say, oh, we're going to name him Ayotunde. You know, normally, I think Yorubas would name him Babatunde or something. But he was like that, no, he's going to be Ayotunde, because even though God has taken my dad, God has sent another amazing child. And his coming into our family gave us so much joy. In short, my mom was the one that we're really scared about that. Oh, how will she survive and all of that. But the moment my son came into the picture, my mom was just like, I'm chilling, you know, like, because he's brought so much joy to our lives. So I think that that's really what I found. I found that whenever God takes something, he gives us something even better. And,
so I want to talk a little bit about purpose, because you seem to be someone who kind of found their purpose really early. And there is a lot of pressure, especially when you've become, in quote, like a role model for even people like myself. And now you're in the church community. And let's talk a bit about the acceptance into the church community as well.
Wow. That's a very, very dicey one. But I believe strongly that find your purpose first in Christ than anyone else or anything else. So that by the time people begin to say, oh, you don't look like you are supposed to look if you are a child of God, you are not swayed by that, you know, because people have different ideas of how a child of God should act or what a child of God should do. So work mostly on your relationship with God so that regardless of what people say, you know who you are in Christ. Because it's a very tricky thing. Sometimes you feel like, okay, and then I've heard people say, oh, someone hurt me, even though the person was someone I looked up to. And a lot of people are beginning to feel like they don't even know what they don't even know what to say or what to feel about those kinds of people because you place them on this really high pedestal and then they do things that hurts you and then you're like, but this person's supposed to be a child of God. You know, so if you are actually living your life for people's acceptance or people's ideas of who you should be as a child of God, then you will miss it. And then purpose is not for a human being. Your own purpose does not lie in a human being's hands. It lies in God's hands. So if God gives you a purpose, then build a relationship with God so that he can help you fulfill that purpose. It's okay for him. He will send people to help you fulfill that purpose. There are people that are instrumental to you, the fulfillment of your purpose. My dad was instrumental to it. My husband is instrumental to it. My mom is instrumental to it. But who gave me that purpose? God did. And so I should rely on him to fulfill that purpose.
I'm interested in hearing, you know, some of the responses you've gotten. You know, we've already given you that gushing response to how we felt about your music, but what's the most special thing you ever heard about someone that was listening to your music?
I think, is it even heard? I think it would be, I experienced it. So I think I was like, what was it? I was 14 or something. I went for an event, where, you know, a Children's Day program. And then this boy was running after our car. I think it was a gay stadium. It was a stadium. And he was running. So he wasn't even slim. He was a bit on the chubby side. And then he was crying. So we had to stop the car. Although I used to freak out when people would be running after the car. I'd be like, why is everyone running and all of that? But then he stopped and then he said, I just love you, you know? And then I hugged him. And that moment changed my life. I was really young then, but it just meant that I was doing, you know, something right or something well. And then I think someone reached out to me sometime and said, you know, he was outside the country and he had issues with his papers or something like that. That was on my YouTube. The person said, oh, I listened to Ose and I got that paper and I listened to it consistently, you know, praying about this particular thing. And then I got my papers and then everything was fine. So moments like that, really, you cannot pay for them. You know, you hear those things and you're like, oh, I'm doing something right. And God is using my gift to actually bless people. So those are the ones I remember.
It is. It is. I had that song on my playlist for a really long time. My husband and I would listen to it every morning coming to the office. It was such a blessing. Thanks for being such a gift.
Thank you.